Hi there, I'm Bella. My sister mocked my so-called failed career right in front of 100 guests. At her own wedding. Everyone laughed. Even my parents didn't flinch. But then, her boss stood up and introduced me as the major shareholder of his firm. Sounds unbelievable? That wasn't even the worst part. You see, this family didn't just overlook me. They used me, lied to me, tried to erase me. Why would a mother ask her daughter to take the fall for a crime she didn't commit? Why would a father sabotage her first real chance at a future? And why, after all of that, did I still show up? I arrived late on purpose. The Wisteria Grand Ballroom buzzed with champagne flutes and fake smiles, the kind of place my sister Kendra had always dreamed of. Crystal chandeliers, custom floral arches, monogrammed cocktail napkins. Every detail screamed status. I walked in alone, in a simple navy dress, no designer label, no +1, and no intention of staying long. I hadn't seen most of these people in years. Turns out absence doesn't make anyone's heart grow fonder. As I stood near the back pretending to enjoy the string quartet's cover of a Taylor Swift ballad, I caught the familiar clang of silverware tapping a glass. Kendra stood, sparkling in lace and diamonds, her arm looped through Damien's. "I just want to thank everyone for being here," she began sweetly. "Especially family." Then she turned her eyes directly toward me. "Even those of us who've taken less traditional career paths." A few polite chuckles followed. Damien smirked like he was in on the joke. Kendra continued, "Not everyone is meant for corporate life. Some people chase dreams, others consult." More laughter now. My aunt tried to hide her grin behind a napkin. I didn't flinch. I didn't react. I'd learned over the years that dignity doesn't require defense. She raised her glass. "To following your passion, no matter how small." My fingers tightened around my flute stem. Not because I was hurt. I'd been prepared for something like this. But I hadn't expected it to sting the same way it always had. Not after everything I'd built. Why did I even show up? Because deep down, some part of me still wanted to be seen. Not as the disappointment. Not as the footnote. Just seen. I stood by the far column, letting the moment pass. If there's one thing growing up in this family taught me, it's how to smile through humiliation. I took a sip and scanned the room, mentally counting the seconds until I could leave without raising eyebrows. Then, I saw him, Elliot Kerman. He wasn't supposed to be here, not at this hour, not yet. But maybe this was exactly when it needed to happen. I turned away from the ballroom before anyone else could catch my face. The last thing I needed was another pitying glance or someone pretending they didn't hear what they clearly did. I stepped through the tall glass doors onto the terrace. The evening air was cool, calming in contrast to the heat swirling inside me. Behind me, the door clicked softly. I didn't need to look. I already knew who it was. "You always did like the quiet corners," my mother's voice murmured. She approached slowly, her heels careful against the stone floor like she didn't want to startle me. I stayed silent. Let her talk. Marlene stood beside me, eyes fixed on the view. Charlotte's skyline glimmered in the distance, untouchable, perfect, like everything she wished our family looked like. "You know Kendra's worked really hard for this. Damien's connections could open more doors at La Vista," she began, as if reading from a carefully rehearsed script. Still, I said nothing. "She's building something, and your name's been floating around a lot lately. This merger of yours, it's making people nervous." My mouth stayed still, but I felt my jaw lock. "Bella," she said, gentler this time, "if you care about your sister, maybe now's not the time to shake things up." There it was, the line that said everything. I turned to face her. "So now I'm the problem." "That's not what I said." "But it's what you meant." Her face hardened just slightly. "I'm asking for discretion. Just stay in the background, for Kendra." "You all liked me better when I was invisible," I said quietly. "But I'm not fading into the wallpaper so Kendra can play princess." "I'm not asking you to give anything up," she insisted. "Just delay it. Let her have her moment." She already had it, on stage, in front of everyone, at my expense. The silence between us stretched, but it wasn't peaceful. It was sharp, edged like broken glass. I stepped past her, back toward the ballroom doors. Just before I pulled them open, I added, "You always said family comes first, but what you meant was, Kendra comes first and I should disappear." I re-entered the room with a calm she didn't deserve to witness. Across the floor, Kendra tossed her head back, laughing like her crown couldn't crack. Damien leaned into her shoulder, smiling the way men do when they think the room belongs to them. It used to hurt, but not tonight. If peace meant erasing myself, then maybe this family never wanted peace. Just silence. I stepped back outside, closing the glass door behind me, this time not to escape, just to breathe. The air had cooled since earlier, carrying the faint scent of lilacs from the courtyard. I leaned on the terrace railing, trying to collect my thoughts, but instead, something collected me. A memory. Sharp, heavy, uninvited. It had been over a decade, but I still remembered the beige carpet of that office, the smell of cheap, pine-scented air freshener, and how tight my blazer felt across my shoulders. I was 22. I had prepped for that interview like my future depended on it, because it did. I wanted that job at Arkway Financial more than anything, not because of prestige or pay, but because it was mine to earn. I'd arrived 20 minutes early, resume printed on ivory paper, hair pulled into the neatest twist I could manage. But the receptionist looked up at me strangely, hesitated, then said, "Someone from your family stopped by earlier. Your father, I believe. He left a message with Mr. Grant." Confused, I nodded. She motioned for me to wait. Then I saw him. My father, Ronald, standing across the lobby like he had every right to be there. He wasn't smiling. He was calm, cool, like he was handling a chore. When Mr. Grant, the hiring manager, stepped out, I opened my mouth to greet him. But my father beat me to it. "She's not ready," he said, voice low but firm. "Her anxiety's worse than she lets on. She gets overwhelmed, shuts down. We're trying to guide her towards something better suited." I froze. My heart raced, but my legs wouldn't move. Mr. Grant looked at me, then back at him. "I see. Well, perhaps we'll reschedule once things are more stable." The meeting ended before it began. That night, at dinner, my father simply said, "I saved you from embarrassment. You'll see it was for your own good." But I didn't see it. Not then. Not now. What I saw was a man who decided for me that I was unfit to choose my own path. Back on the terrace tonight, I clenched the edge of the stone railing, grounding myself. "You didn't protect me," I whispered to no one. "You erased me." I'd spent years convincing myself that staying quiet kept the peace, but no one had ever asked what peace cost me. Back inside, the lights seemed harsher now. My father stood by the bar, laughing with Damien like nothing had ever happened, because for him, nothing had. He noticed me watching. I didn't blink. I didn't smile. They thought I'd vanished years ago, but I hadn't disappeared. I'd just been growing where no one thought to look. I crossed the ballroom slowly, weaving past servers with polished trays and guests lost in small talk. My hand found an untouched flute of champagne on the bar. Refill by convenience, not celebration. As I turned to lean against the marble edge, I felt the air shift behind me. Marlene. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. "I need to speak with you," she said low, her tone clipped. "Privately." I didn't move. She stepped closer. "Do you remember what you did for Kendra? With the La Vista board?" The words hit before I could stop them. Years ago. Kendra had fudged quarterly numbers, replaced stagnant engagement data with glossy, inflated metrics. A junior staffer flagged it. An internal review was opened. I had no stake in it, except that months earlier, I'd done part-time freelance analytics for that same campaign. That's when Mom cornered me outside her kitchen. "You'll say it was your file," she'd told me. "It was just a spreadsheet mix-up. Nobody needs this scandal." I shook my head then, stunned. She lied to her own company. Why should I cover it? "Don't be dramatic," she'd hissed. "Do you want your sister's career destroyed over a software error?" That's how they always did it. Wrapped deception in concern, masked control as protection. And I did it. I swallowed the truth for the sake of family. It wasn't bravery. It wasn't kindness. It was fear disguised as loyalty. Now, standing across from her again, I saw she wasn't asking me to remember that night. She was using it as leverage. That's what family does. she said evenly. No, I replied, my voice steady. That's what manipulation does. You asked me to lie, not to protect her, but to preserve your version of perfect. She blinked. That soft gasp people give when control slips. I'm not your fixer anymore, I added, and I'm done pretending silence is grace. I walked away, feeling her eyes on my back, but I didn't turn. From across the room, Kendra saw us, her brows creased, her mouth twitching like she might come over, but she didn't. Of course she didn't. They've always been better at turning away than facing what they've done. But I'd learned to face it, all of it, and this time, I wouldn't be the one cleaning it up. I made my way toward the dessert table, not for the sweets, just distance. The murmurs of the ballroom dulled behind me as I passed clusters of half-drunk smiles. Before I could reach for anything, I heard his voice. Didn't expect to see you here tonight, Bella. Damien, his tone casual but calculated. He picked up a chocolate tart, not even looking at me at first. I heard Elliot might show up too. Small world, huh? I turned slightly, just enough to catch his smirk. He always acted like charm was armor, as if I hadn't seen beneath it. I suppose some people show up when you least expect, I said evenly. He chuckled. You know, there's still time to reconsider that opportunity I mentioned. Quietly. Just between us. I didn't blink. 2 months ago, he messaged me under a fake name on LinkedIn, claimed to be launching a disruptive tech concept and wanted me as a founding advisor. What he really meant was, help him steal La Vista's client list and pivot it into a side company, behind Kendra's back no less. When I declined, he doubled down, hinting at insider access and mutual benefit. I saved the screenshots. I never responded. Now here he was, pretending it never happened. Funny how memory works, I said, grabbing a fork off the linen, especially when people think no one's keeping score. His jaw twitched. I leaned in just enough. Would you like me to forward those messages to Kendra? Or maybe Elliot would enjoy them more? Damien's grin flattened. Look, he muttered, this doesn't have to be messy. No, I said calmly, placing my glass on a passing tray. But if you keep playing dumb, it will be. He glanced toward Kendra. She won't believe you. Then she chose poorly. Again. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't make a scene, but he heard me. As I walked away, I passed Elliot near the edge of the dance floor. He met my eyes and gave the smallest nod, barely noticeable. I whispered, more to myself than anyone else, let's see how loud the truth can get. Just as I drifted toward the edge of the crowd, the room stilled. A soft clink echoed from the stage, followed by Elliot's voice, measured, confident, unmistakably intentional. If I could have just a moment, he said, raising his glass slightly. I wasn't planning to speak tonight, but I'm glad I came after all. It's not often I get to celebrate alongside one of Aurora Capital's most instrumental partners, Bella Macklin. Silence. Heads turned like dominoes. I heard a fork clatter to the floor. Kendra's expression froze halfway through a smile. Damien tensed, eyes darting toward me. Elliot didn't waver. Most of you know her as Kendra's little sister. What you don't know is, without her strategic foresight, this room, this company, and frankly, some of your paychecks wouldn't exist. Bella doesn't just consult, she steers. A wave of murmurs rippled through the crowd. My mother's jaw slackened. My father furrowed his brow as if trying to calculate damage control on the fly. And I? I lifted my glass with calm precision. Thank you, Elliot, I said clearly. I wasn't planning to say anything tonight either, but maybe it's time. As I looked out, faces I hadn't seen in years stared back, half stunned, half scrambling to realign their assumptions. But I wasn't looking for approval. I was reclaiming space. And as I stood there, a memory slipped in like a shadow. I was 26, seated at our dining table with a pitch deck in hand. Aurora Capital had been an idea then. Research-heavy, lean, scalable. I showed them everything. Dad skimmed page 1 before chuckling. You want to play Wall Street? Be serious. Mom didn't even open the folder. Kendra's MBA was expensive. We can't stretch ourselves for another experiment. That was the day I learned funding would come from somewhere else. Or nowhere. Either way, I'd make it work. And I did. Back in the present, I met Kendra's eyes. Her lips parted, searching for something to say, but all she managed was a whisper to Damien. "What the hell is going on?" I smiled. "Let's finish this." The silence after my smile didn't last. I barely took a step before Kendra cut through the crowd, heels clicking like a countdown. Damien trailed close behind, his expression souring by the second. "You think this is cute?" she hissed, inches from my face. "That stunt? That announcement? You're lucky we don't sue." Damien chimed in, voice low but sharp. "We've already spoken to our attorneys. What you did tonight, defamation, public slander." I kept my posture still, steady. "Which part? Elliot's words about my ownership? Or your wedding toast, where you mocked my entire life?" Their silence answered for them. I let a breath hang, then pulled my phone from my clutch. "Funny thing about public threats," I said. "They invite transparency, which means discovery." I tapped a folder labeled 2014 Strategy Original Drafts. The screen displayed a clean file, one Kendra had seen before, because I'd shown it to her myself. Her eyes narrowed. "What is that?" "You remember mid-market targeting for beauty lines, right?" I said. "I shared this with you, back when I still believed sisters build each other up." Her mouth opened, then closed. Damien looked at her, genuinely confused. "Oh, she didn't tell you?" I turned to him. "The entire pitch that got her that La Vista promotion? It was mine, word for word. Dates and metadata prove it." I hadn't said a word back then. I was younger, hopeful, naive enough to think being quiet was noble, but tonight wasn't about noble. "I built myself in silence," I said evenly, sliding the phone back into my bag, "and you assumed silence meant weakness." Damien's shoulders stiffened. Kendra's hands trembled. They didn't shout. They didn't deny it. Because they couldn't. From the corner of my eye, I saw Elliot move, not toward me, but away from them. Quiet. Purposeful. Like someone marking the beginning of an end. I stepped back, letting them absorb the shift. "Go ahead," I said. "Call your lawyers." I turned before either of them could find words. Now it was time to clean house. The hum of fluorescent lights was the only sound in the corridor as I stepped into Argent Edge's headquarters that Monday morning. This wasn't just another day, and I wasn't just another woman in a blazer. I was here to finish what should have ended long ago. Emma greeted me near the elevator. "The La Vista board is already seated." I gave her a nod. "Let's not keep them waiting." Inside the conference room, glass walls surrounded a long, polished table where Elliot stood at the head, flanked by the other board members. He didn't smile, just gave a slight tilt of the head, enough to signal, "It's yours now." I walked to the front, plugged in my drive, and the projector flared to life behind me. "I'll keep this brief," I began. "Today's review is not about image, it's about performance, the kind that affects shareholders, clients, and every person who works under this roof." Slide after slide, Kendra's numbers told their own story. Inflated quarterly projections, budget overruns, anonymous HR complaints compiled and corroborated. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't editorialize. I simply concluded, "We value contribution, not proximity." There was a pause, the kind that holds breath in a room. Then, one by one, hands went up for the vote. Kendra was removed, effective immediately. Damien, seated 2 chairs from her, didn't wait to be dismissed. He stood, muttered something under his breath, and walked out. I gathered my notes calmly. The power wasn't in the theatrics, it was in the quiet. As I moved to leave, a memory stirred. The first time Elliot ever backed me, not just with words, but with action. 3 years ago. I was drowning in red. One deal fell apart, and it triggered a cascade. My name was still unknown. Banks avoided me. But Elliot? He'd taken one look at my pitch and said, "You don't need a lifeboat. You need someone who sees the storm the way you do." That funding kept me alive, but his belief? That lit the fire. Now I walked past Kendra, who sat frozen, not crying, not yelling, just stunned. Her world hadn't ended, but the center had shifted, and it no longer belonged to her. I didn't gloat. I didn't slow down. This wasn't revenge. It was correction. And justice, when done right, doesn't need applause. It was a Tuesday evening when the envelope arrived. No return address. Just my name, Bella. written in that looping, deliberate script I hadn't seen in years. I let it sit untouched on the kitchen counter while I reheated dinner. I didn't rush. I knew who it was from the second I saw the handwriting, and I knew it wasn't asking for anything, at least not out loud. When I finally opened it, the paper was heavy, unlined. She'd written in blue ink. My mother never used blue ink unless it was real. She wrote, "I didn't see you clearly, Bella. I thought protection meant softening the world for you. I realize now I was the one distorting it. I followed noise, the kind Kendra made so well, but I ignored your silence. I didn't know how to raise a daughter who didn't need saving. Just space. You don't need to reply. I just needed you to know. There were no excuses, no grand declarations of change, just a quiet reckoning." I folded the letter and slipped it into the drawer beside a photo of us, the last full family portrait before I started Aurora. We were smiling back then, but I remember now how forced it felt, how small I made myself to keep peace. I didn't cry. I didn't text her. Not because I was angry, but because healing doesn't always look like phone calls and reunions. Some wounds close in silence. That night, I sat by the window and let the city speak. In the distance, lights blinked steady and patient, like they'd always been there, waiting for me to catch up. The next morning, I walked into Argentedge in a navy suit. Nothing flashy, just firm. Emma looked up from her desk. "Investor call in 10 minutes. Want coffee?" "Black, strong," I said. I stepped into my office, placed my phone down, and walked to the glass wall. The skyline stretched wide before me, crisp, unshaken. They finally saw me, but I had already built the view. Sometimes silence isn't peace, it's survival. And for years, I survived by staying small enough to fit inside the version of me my family could tolerate. But growth has a way of cracking walls wide open. If you've ever felt overlooked, underestimated, or dismissed by the people who were supposed to believe in you, let me be the voice reminding you. Their vision isn't your limit. You don't need to yell to prove your worth. You just need to build, quietly, deliberately, until what you've built speaks louder than their opinions ever did. This wasn't a story about revenge. It was a story about boundaries, about choosing truth over tradition, and self-respect over silent loyalty. And maybe you're in that place now, where your voice is shaking, your path uncertain, your roots deep but unseen. If you are, keep going. What feels like isolation might just be transformation. Let me ask you something. Have you ever had to walk away from people you loved? Just to finally love yourself, right? I'd love to hear your story. Drop a comment, even just a 1 inch, if this hit home. Or let me know where you're watching from. If you didn't like this video, that's okay too. Tell me why. I read every comment, and this space is for real stories, not perfect ones. And if you want more stories like this, true and human, hit that subscribe button. Let's keep growing together.